What's up, guys? On this week's show,
Ant-Man and the Wasp review,
Men in Black Reboot,
and Everybody Hates Jessica Jones,
plus Dumb Shit of the Week. All that and more on this episode
of One Giant Leap for Geeks.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for
Geeks. Welcome to another episode of OGLFG, where we talk about movies, video games, and all things in geek culture. I'm your host, Mike C. Squared, and with me is my better half, Amber.
Hey guys.
So before we get started this week, I wanted to give a special shout out because somebody was foolish enough to ask me to come onto their show. Nick from the Nerd to the Third podcast. They are a fairly new podcast. I think it was episode 5 that we did together. And we're going to try to get him on to our show next week. But we had a really good time. We talked about trailers ruining movies. Will we ever actually get a good video game movie? Just some of the things that we've been doing in our spare time, like what games we've been playing, movies we've been watching, things like that. It was a really good conversation. Coach is a new member to the show, and he was really awesome as well. So I just want to give a shout out to those guys. Thank you for having me on. I had a really great time, and I hope to have you on very soon. Anywho, now that all that, dick sucking is out of the way. Our first story, well, actually it's not a story. We are doing a, what is that thing called when you miss someone's birthday? We are doing a belated. Yes, a belated review for Jessica Jones Season 2 on Netflix. So, how we've started doing our movie reviews for new movies that come out is we do them at the end of the episode, because we will have one today, and we will do one half spoiler free and one half with spoilers. Now, for this series, it's been out for a while,
a few months,
yeah. And so at this point I feel like it's probably safe to go ahead and openly talk about it with spoilers, because I don't want to do a one half non-spoiler on this one just because it's been out for so long. So I would assume most people who wanted to see it have seen it already, and those who didn't just won't. But anyway, so just to give you kind of like a little mini synopsis, we pick up not too long after the events of the Defenders. Yeah, it seems like it's after the Defenders. And Jessica is still doing her private eye thing. Malcolm is now her assistant, I guess you can call it that. Assistant,
intern. He does everything.
Right. He's her secretary or some such shit. But yeah, no, he works with Jessica now in some capacity or another. And Trish is now dating this like journalist dude. He's on TV. He's a TV anchor,
a reporter.
And yeah.
They're actually engaged.
Oh, is that what it is? They're engaged?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right, because that was that whole thing. And basically the status quo is basically still the same from the first season of Jessica Jones. She's pretty much gotten over the whole thing with Kilgrave and everything like that. Like, she's past that.
Mm-hmm.
And Trish has gotten over the boyfriend that was on the drug that was all crazy and whatnot. So for the most part, everybody's doing okay.
As they can be.
For the most part, right. Now Trish, she has gotten her hands on that enhancement drug that her boyfriend was using the last season, and now she's been using that shit and getting kind of crazy with it as well.
Overly using,
abusing
it.
Yeah. And there is this killer who is going out and killing other people with abilities who or people who worked at the same hospital that Jessica got her abilities from. And it's this whole mystery, and they're trying to figure out who's doing this and why. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of go into the story from there. I'm going to say right off the bat that the first episode of this is so boring. I mean, there was nothing that hooked me, and it was funny because Nick from the Nerd to the Third podcast, he kind of said this about shows and things like that in general, about how if it can't hook him within the first episode or so, or the first 2 minutes of the episode, then they're probably never gonna hook him. And I was like, I agree with that. Like, especially with this show, like there was nothing in that first episode that hooked me, that made me go like, oh, I'm so glad, Jessica Jones is back. I can't wait to see what they do for the rest of this season. I felt like I was kind of watching it out of obligation because
it took us like a month and a half to finish it after we started it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, because we started watching this and
when
we maybe watched the first 2 episodes maybe when it first came out, and then never went back to it again for like a good month or so. And then we just kind of, crammed our way through the last few episodes over the course of a week or so. And it was a slog, man. It was rough getting through it. Not only is the show slow, but the plot this season, it just
moved really slow.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't want to keep using the word boring, but it was.
There was nothing that really, like, it started to pick up as the season went on.
Yeah.
There was more action, but...
And even with that, though, the Jessica Jones series has never really been big on action,
Not really.
And that's kind of what I liked about it, because it was something different, because it's not like a Daredevil or Iron Fist or something like that. Like, it's more of this detective, film noir kind of vibe where, it's a slower burn. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with, like, I'm not one of those people who I have to have just action every minute. Every episode has to be just some crazy explosion. It doesn't need to be Arrow every episode for me to like it. You know what I mean?
You don't like Arrow.
No. And even Arrow, yeah, God. Anyway. As far as some of the things now, we're going to kind of just bounce around to just different points throughout it, because it's a 13-episode series, and this isn't going to be like a linear from start to finish conversation about it. We're just going to kind of bounce around. But one of the first things, my biggest issues with this show was I did not like Alyssa, Jessica's mother. Like, I did not like her character at all.
I didn't either.
I felt like she became a bit more interesting probably around like episode 8 or 9. I liked what they were doing and developing her character more, but everything before that, I was like, I just don't give a shit. And then after we do get her developed and they show her backstory and why she is the way she is and what happened to her, because in the show, she survived the accident as well as Jessica, but she had like burns over like 90% of her body, and she was all fucked up.
She was in a coma for years.
Yeah. Well, they ended up putting her into a coma because remember, after she came out of the initial accident, she went and crazy and started killing everybody in the hospital, and then they put her down, and that's when she was out for those few years or whatever. And they were doing some kind of genetic modification at that hospital. That's how Jessica got her powers, and her mother got similar abilities, and as well, because they changed her DNA sequence or whatever, it made her appearance different. So she still sounded the same as she did when Jessica remembers her, but she looks like a different person now.
Plus, she has no hair.
Right, and she's bald, like the back of her head's all just, it looks terrible. It's bad. She has to wear a wig and shit. It's all fucked up. But my issue with how they were handling her character, it's like, on one hand, it seemed as though everybody in the show knew that she was dangerous and couldn't be trusted and had to be watched at all times, if not killed, to stop her. And then on the other hand, people treated her like she was just a normal criminal, just like she was shoplifting or some shit. Like, the way they handle her. Like, for example, it didn't make sense to me that she wasn't sent to the raft in the first place. But somehow the Falcon and Hawkeye and Ant-Man and Captain America, if they could have caught him, they all would have ended up at the raft. But this bitch just gets to go to a regular maximum security prison. I'm like, Hogarth must be a hell of a fucking lawyer. Like, she has to be the best damn lawyer in all of New York to talk them out of taking this super powered, mass murdering, cop killing person and make the argument that they don't need to go to the prisons, the superhero, Jesus, the prison for superheroes. Send her to a regular person
She'll
prison.
be fine.
It's fine. She breaks out of that shit and kills the motherfucker so damn quick. It was just like, of course that was gonna happen. Like,
what did you expect?
Right, and it was funny because they kind of had this little throwaway line where Hogarth's like, oh, well, I reminded the district attorney that, about how they didn't want to sit across from me in a courtroom. And I'm like, look, I don't give a damn how good of a lawyer you is. It's like, that'd be like letting Charles Manson go to like a minimum security or like juvenile detention or some bullshit, house arrest. Like, it was... It
just won't work.
No, it was absurd. And then to even suggest that people would accept her, like the warden, you would think would be like, fuck no, she ain't coming here. Like, she gonna kill everybody in this goddamn prison. Prisoners, guards, everybody. Shit, she would have my ass hung upside down outside the prison or something. Other than that, because I'm not going to completely shit on this thing, the whole thing, because if you can't tell, that's kind of where this is going. Spoiler alert. One of the things I did like, though, the whole setup, the whole side story with Hogarth and her, what does she have, ALS?
I believe so,
yeah. And her getting sick and them trying to force her out of the company. Like, I enjoyed a lot of her side story this season.
I did, too.
A bit more than I did the first season, but Hogarth getting conned was great. And the reveal was done extremely well. That was some of, like, the best few minutes of television I've seen in a long time. Like, so the setup is, there's, Hogarth is kind of spiraling out of control because, you know, she knows that she's sick and she's dying and there's nothing that they can do for her, and she's getting pushed out of the company and she's just making all these bad decisions. She's out doing cocaine and picking up prostitutes by like the handfuls and shit, and, you know, spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars partying and just doing all this crazy shit. And she meets this prostitute who used to work at the hospital that Jessica got her abilities from, and she's trying to get information out of her.
The IGH people.
Right, the IGH people, to try and help Jessica, as well as her own ulterior motives as well. And the girl tells her that there was a patient there that could heal people, and that he may be able to help her. Now, he is in prison currently. Now, Hogarth, she pulls some strings. She gets the guy out of prison. She takes him into her home, you know, feeds him, gives him clothes, this, that, and the other, takes care of him. Now she's like pretty much dating the prostitute chick at this point.
Basically,
now as well.
Yes.
And the guy heals her. She's all better. Everything's all good. And then she meets Jessica, and Jessica is the first time, because I bought it the whole time. I never questioned it. And Jessica was the one that planted that seed of doubt into Hogarth, who, you know, immediately put up a wall, and she's like, no, it was real. He healed me, and this, that, and the other.
She's like, I felt it.
Right. She was like, I know, you know, what happened. I felt something. And after that, the whole time, I'm just questioning it, going like, shit, like, maybe Jessica does have a point. And then when Jessica finally catches up to the doctor who did the experimentation on her, she questions him about it, and he's like, you know, I don't know the name of that person. I forget the guy's name, but...
He's like, there was never a patient there by that name.
Right, or that
could heal people. There was no such thing that someone could heal someone.
Right. There was nobody there that had that ability. So Jessica confronts Hogarth about it. She tells her. Hogarth bowls it off. And she's like, no, I know it was real, this, that, and the other. You know, pretty much, you know, fuck you. Like, I'm going to help you out this one last time, and then, you know, kiss my ass. I'm finna go do me. She comes home. And oh my God, just the way it was shot, and the music, the setup, the acting. Oh my God, Carrie Ann Moss acted her ass off in that scene. Like, the expression on her face when she opens the door to her apartment, because they don't show you the apartment at first. They stay close up on her, and you just see her face and her reacting. And then they slowly turn the camera as she's walking in, and it's just destroyed. Like, they took her furniture, like her vases and shit, paintings off the wall.
Went through drawers. They went through everything.
Just ransacked her shit. Like, what? And I forgot. What did I keep saying?
They cleaned her out.
Yeah, they cleaned her ass out. Like, I was just in shock. And then just the way she broke down on the floor and the camera's panning around her and she's just like screaming, just wailing. I was like, fuck, man. Like, even though I don't really like Hogarth as a character, I felt really bad for her.
She lost everything. Even though she said she was dying, she said it would be worthless to try to replace all this stuff. That's why she wanted to try and track all her stuff down. She's like, it would be a waste of my time just to buy new stuff.
And she spends a good part of the rest of the season trying to track down the stuff,
going to
and
pawn
find
shops.
the people. And I did like we got to see Turk again. He pops up.
Yeah.
He's the dude that everybody fucks with, and
she got a gun from him.
Mm-hmm. And they set it up to where like, oh, you think she's gonna go kill them? You know, when she finds him.
Yeah.
But what she does is she talks to the girl, and she's like, I can't believe you did this to me. I trusted you. I don't trust anybody, and I opened up to you. You take advantage of me. And the girl's like, well, you know, I'm sorry. Like, you know, it wasn't all just a con. Like, I did really start to feel something for you. And then Hogarth begins to tell her, like, oh, he playing you too. You know, he does this to a lot of women. He had all these chicks sending him money in prison, yada, yada, yada. And the girl's like, no, I don't believe it. And she's like, I got this folder back here with all, you know, these letters that he was sending to these chicks and yada, yada, yada. And then finally, she coerces the girl into taking the gun. They go up. She goes into the apartment. They argue. She shoots him, kills him. And then the police are coming and Hogarth gets away.
Dips.
And lo and behold, that folder that had them letters and shit in it that he was writing to these other chicks, it was actually just listings to all the pawn shops she had been calling trying to get her shit back. So I was like, she, you know, got payback in a masterful way and got to completely, you know, stay out of it and not get her hands dirty like she said she would. So that was one thing that I did like. Now, one of the things that we both didn't like. The guards. Okay, so when...
in the prison.
Yes, when Alyssa is in prison, she has a guard. And when you first see him, he is like the most jovial, nicest. You know, he's asking her about, you know, how she's doing. Is she getting fed okay? You know, he's talking about his dad and his family and how his dad was a cop and yada, yada.
He was just concerned about her well-being.
Yeah, he seemed like a genuinely nice dude. And no bullshit, not even 30 seconds later, this motherfucker turn around and just becomes like a whole other person. He does a complete 180.
Script.
He's like in her cell because there was something that happened during the first time we saw him that kind of showed like he was crazy because he wants her to do something and she won't listen, and he gets upset. But it didn't.
She's vegetarian, and he wanted her to finish her food.
That's what it was. Yeah, he was like, you won't get your proteins without eating the meat.
Yeah.
Yada.
She refused to eat the food.
Yeah, and he even seemed like he was genuinely concerned.
Oh, yeah.
Because when he asked her, he goes, when she says she's a vegetarian, he's like, oh, well, we didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know, like, he seemed like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, you know, I'll make sure we get you some vegetarian food. He's like, but I need you to finish this, you know, because you have to... You know, we have to make sure you're nourished. Like, we can't have you in here suffering and shit. But, once she doesn't do it, he kind of gets upset at her, but she eats it and it's all good. The next time we see him, this motherfucker got her chained up to the bed, and he's just, like, ripping up the pictures of her and Jessica, like, throwing all her toiletries all around the fucking cell. You know, he's, like, electrocuting her and shit. It's just doing all this just crazy ass, and I was like, where did this come from? And then later, like, Jessica finds out, like, oh, there was a bunch of prisoner suicides under his watch, and that, you know, it's implied that he was killing these prisoners and all this other kind of shit. And it was like, it didn't make sense of how... And I talked about this with you off mic. If she had been in prison from an earlier point in the season, I could have bought his turn later.
Oh, yeah.
Because it would have made sense that he was building up this relationship and trying to build trust with her and coerce her into opening up to him, and then him take advantage of her and be all crazy and manipulative and abusive and shit. But I'm like, you could never do any of that if you did that early into, you know, you being at a new prison and that early into you meeting a new inmate. Because if you immediately do some shit like that, they're going to be like, man, this motherfucker's crazy as hell. Like, you don't see he done tore up all this shit in my cell and look at my wrists. See, you know, I'm getting electrocuted and burned in here and shit. Like, I'm not doing this to myself. Like, I'm always on lockdown or in cuffs or something. How could I?
Or have someone watching her 24/7.
Thank you. Like, the fact that she didn't have cameras in that cell or anything. Again, they treated her like she was just some regular-ass prisoner that was in just solitary confinement. Like,
Unless she had a visitor.
right. Then they had, like, every guard in the prison, like, with guns on her in the visitor room, like, the whole time. And it's just like, well, shit. It's like, if y'all take all these precautions... Because they even make it a point to where Jessica says something like, is all this necessary to one of the guards? And they're like, yeah, man, we're not going nowhere.
No, I think Trish said that.
Oh, yeah, because it was like, yeah, protocol is that we can leave the room, but it's like, no, we don't trust this bitch. Like, hell no. And then I felt bad for her other guard that came in, the lady, because she just did her so dirty. Like, that lady was so nice.
She was being nice and naive, I guess.
Kind of, sort of, because she was putting on this tough front, like, oh, you know, don't take my kindness for a weakness type shit. Like, oh, I'm nice, but, you know, I don't fuck around. But every time Alyssa would ask her for something, she'd be like, no, like, put her hands on her hip, and it's like, no. And Alyssa would be like, please. And then she'll be like, oh, okay.
I guess.
I'll let you have some privacy with your daughter in the waiting room. And I'm like, the last time we was in here during a visitation, y'all motherfuckers had like a tank sitting outside ready to blow this bitch up. And now it's like, well, I guess she can have some alone time. And it's like, oh, please, I just need to make a phone call to my daughter. And she's like, oh, no, not until you eat your food. And she's like, oh, please, you know, she went out on a date and I just want to make sure, you know, she's okay. And she's like, okay, I guess you can call your daughter. And I was just like, what
but
the
she
fuck?
called her, she wanted to call her for a completely different reason.
Yeah, because she figured out that Jessica killed the guard.
The male guard.
Yeah, that had been doing her dirty. That's why she had a different guard in the first place. Because they even making a whole point about, like, where's the other guy? Hey, I don't see him.
Show
Where
up
is
for
he?
work today, and
she's
he's
like,
never missed a day.
Right, and the lady's like, this is big black lady. She's like, I ain't that motherfucking keeper.
She's like, just enjoy the quiet or the peace or
right,
something.
Right, let us both enjoy his day off or something.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And then, and she kills that poor woman. She's like in her cell screaming out and shit, and lady just does some stupid shit. And just goes in there and she's like, what's wrong, Alyssa? Are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. And Alyssa just on the ground, just crying, just bawling, crying. And she's like, you know, I need you to stop crying now. She goes into her cell. Oh, you know, inmate, you better quit it now. Like, come on now, stop it. And then she pulls out her little taser. Alyssa gets up, throws that bitch against the wall, breaks through the goddamn prison door, and is gone. And I'm just like, why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? Like, the moment she opened that cell door, I'm like, you know damn well you ain't supposed to be in here alone with her. Like, or at least not without somebody outside the door.
Something's gonna happen.
And I was just like, God, Jesus Christ. I was like, so yeah, her first guard did a complete 180 and became a different person, and the second guard just did some dumb shit, and so they both kind of had what they got coming. One of the other things, Malcolm. Malcolm has this whole like undiscovered backstory that came out of nowhere, and the whole time I just kept saying throughout the show, I'm like, weren't you on crack last season or some shit? I'm like, they make it sound like this motherfucker was in like law school or something.
Yeah, they showed he went back to his old college and he ran into his ex-girlfriend and she was like a month away or something
from graduating
with her master's.
Yeah, and she's like, what happened to you? You just disappeared. And I'm like, yeah, what did happen? And how have you been surviving on your own this whole time? Because you was like one heroin needle away from death last season, and Jessica had to like drag you out of like your addiction, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, and then he went to Yale, and he has this nice ass suit in his closet and shit.
Well,
like,
you just see him. He wants to grow. He wants to better himself and further his career, and Jessica's really not doing crap for him, so he kind of has to go out on his own.
Yo, you're right.
To find himself a better job.
Yeah, no, she shits on him throughout the whole season.
Fires him so many times.
Yeah, and he just keeps coming back like a abused, wife or something. I feel so bad for him half the time. I was like, man, she treating this dude like shit. And especially for how little a friend she has, she needs everybody on her team that she can get.
Exactly.
But I just didn't buy just the leaps that they were making with him. And then like after by the end of the season, once Jessica is pretty much like, oh, fuck you, you know, you was fucking Trish and helping her do all this other crazy shit and trying to stop my mom, and you should have let me go away with my serial killer mother and, you know, live with her happily in
On the lam.
Right, in Canada or some shit, wherever the fuck they were trying to get to. But he goes from just barely scraping by and can barely do his job right with Jessica to suddenly now he's working for like the competing private investigator dude, and he all like he got a briefcase now, and it's like, wait a minute. Not to say that you couldn't get to this point, but he did that shit literally overnight.
Oh yeah,
like he went
Shaved
to Hogarth.
His hair.
Yeah, he went to Hogarth trying to get a job for her, and at least she said the same thing I was thinking, like, there ain't no way in hell you on the level to work for me.
No.
She was like, yeah, you can do that little bullshit you be doing with Jessica or whatever, go, you know, look up, Google some shit and go ask some questions to somebody, but you ain't on my level, and you ain't never gonna be at the level where I'm gonna need you to be if you want to work for me.
Well, then when he started working for the competing PI, they ended up working under Hogarth.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much was working for her
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, so I was just like, okay, whatever. Another positive, I guess, Alyssa's arc was very interesting, and once they explained her backstory about how she got her abilities, and because they reveal that she's Jessica's mother before they explain how that makes sense, because Jessica meets that girl or the woman earlier in the season, and there's like no kind of inclination that they know each other at all, and then she finds out where the woman lives, and she smells her perfume, and she drops it because she recognizes it and it's familiar to her, and then she sees the picture of herself and her mom on the lady's dresser, and then she comes in and she says her name, and she's like, Mom. But this is my thing, though. They said that the only thing that was different was her appearance.
But Jessica forgot. She thought her mom was dead.
Sure, but she talked to her in that diner, like sitting right
Yeah.
across from each other for a good period of time. It's like, you didn't recognize her voice and be like, you sound a lot like my mother. Like, you know, whatever. That's a small nitpick. But once they explained all that, I was like, ooh, I like where this is going now. Because I'm like, now, you know, she's going to be faced with, she's got to get over the fact that her mother is back and have to accept the fact that she's evil, and now Jessica's going to have to kill her mom. It don't go that way.
No.
Like, at all. She immediately is like, okay, Mom, I love you. You're back. All right. It's all good. She's like, I know you kill people. I would rather you didn't. But I'll accept it, and we'll just go with it. And I was so frustrated throughout that whole thing. I'm like, why do you keep letting this go on? Like, this is not okay. What with how broken down she was about killing Kilgrave, because even though she knew she had to do it, she didn't want to, and she was really upset that she had to kill him. And then when she killed the guards, she was real distraught about that shit. And then it's like, and then by the end of the season, she's just like, fuck it, I'll kill whoever we gotta kill so we can be together and get away.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, man, like, you've just become a completely different kid. She almost killed Trish.
Almost.
And I'm just like, what the fuck? Over her mom. I'm like, this bitch, whatever. Like, I'm not going to keep elaborating on that. But the point is, I was interested to see and excited to see where this was going. But once she began flip-flopping from, like, good to bad, I kind of lost interest because we knew that she did bad shit. They showed her backstory, so you kind of got sympathy for her. But it's still like, yeah, you still fucked up and crazy. And then it was like, oh, you know, I'm going to be good so you like me again, and then I immediately kill somebody. And it's like every time she would do some redeeming trait, she would then immediately take 10 steps back and murder somebody. And it's like, the fuck? Like, why? What else? Jessica's relationship with her mom was completely unbelievable, and how she was just so ready to just throw everything, you know, away with her.
Hop in a van and just run away.
Yeah, it just felt really out of character because we've seen Jessica 2 different times now. We've seen her in her season of her first season, and then we saw her in Defenders. In this season, that is not the same Jessica Jones from those first 2 seasons.
No.
Jessica is closed off and cynical and all this other kind of shit, and she rarely opens up to people, and just how she just completely just gave herself over to her mom. Now, I get it. You know, she thought she lost her family. She finally gets her mother back. But with all the circumstances surrounding it, the fact that she just went blind to all that and was just completely like, she started lying to Malcolm about it. She lied to Trish about it. Hogarth, like, she manipulated and used people, took advantage of motherfuckers, did all kind of shit to protect her. And I'm just like, you're telling me that all these relationships that you've built over all these years and people that you care about and who have helped you and took you in when you didn't have nobody else is just fuck all them, right? I got my mama back, so fuck these motherfuckers. I'm like, Jessica's like 35 years old. Like, you ain't 16 no more, motherfucker. Like, just because your mom popped back up, it ain't just like the whole world's supposed to stop. So y'all can go off and, you know, do your mom and daughter camping trip or whatever the fuck they was trying to do by the end of this.
But I think she evolved, too, as a character because she... in her relationship with her boyfriend, even she grew in that. She was being a human and she accepted him and his son and wanted to make that relationship work.
Right, but then, like I said, you know, Mommy Dearest come and it's just like,
no, this was after.
What do you mean?
After she came back, after her mom was
at
dead.
At the very end, yeah. But no, leading up to that, though, she had built this relationship with the Super and his son and everything else, and this dude, you know, he afraid he might get deported or some shit, or not deported, but go to prison or something because he was caught up with some other
probation.
Shit. Yeah, and that's why he didn't like Jessica being around.
And he didn't want to lose custody of his son.
Custody. Yes. And his baby mama be tripping and all this other shit. So he's putting his self out on the line. He made fake passports for your mother's boyfriend, Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein ass motherfucker who doing all these experiments and shit. Like, that dude put his neck out for her hardcore, and she was just like, okay, I'm going off of mom, bye, fuck you. And I was
basically,
like,
yeah.
Trish. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I did want to bring up the other PI dude. The competing PI guy, he makes a giant leap. No pun intended. Don't you fucking dare laugh at that shit. The competing private eye, he makes a giant leap in retaliation, regardless of Jessica's mother being the killer or whatever. And didn't like she kill one of his people?
I want to
say like that.
So.
Yeah. Because like I said, those first couple episodes, it was so long between that and watching the rest of it, I kind of fuzzy on the first few episodes. But I'm pretty sure she killed somebody that he cared about or something like that. But this motherfucker goes and somehow he just knows that that's Jessica's mom. Like, nobody else has figured this out yet, but he knows somehow. And he goes outside of Jessica's apartment with a sniper rifle, and he don't even know that the mom is in the apartment. He's looking at Jessica at first, and then he sees the mom, and he's like, oh, she is there. And he just starts unloading on her fucking window. Like, he shoots Jessica in the back, shoots her apartment all the fuck up, and I'm just like, seriously? I was like, so you just willing to commit murder now, huh? Like, I thought you were, like, running a business and you were a professional private investigator, and the reason that you didn't like Jessica was because of her methods and how she handled herself and shit. And you was like, I can do this better than you. You were reckless and this, that, and the other. And then you just go out and start just blowing her goddamn shit up.
He don't care.
He's like, fuck that bitch. She killed my best friend or somebody. My favorite intern. But Trish's character arc made absolutely no sense, like, to me whatsoever. Like, she never went to she never showed any inclinations in the first season of being this highly addictive personality, super jealous, really needy, this, like, fame chasing. Because in the first season, they made it seem like she didn't like the fact that she was a child star and that her mom made her famous.
It seemed like she was very independent on her own. And...
Right, she was like, you know, like she wanted to help people, yes, and do more. But I mean, most of these side characters in these shows are always like that. It's like, oh, I don't have powers like you, but I want to help, you know, and that's fine. But in this season, they turned her into some, like, jealous ass, no, I gotta be a superhero type shit.
I think a lot of it had to do with she broke off her engagement, too. So she was depressed in the beginning, and then she was trying to...
Well, that's what kind of made her spiral into the drugs more, but that isn't necessarily connected to her turn to the point where she lied to Jessica, she kidnapped the doctor, she knocked out and kidnapped Malcolm. You know, she was ready to shoot Malcolm over that shit. Like, she did a lot of fucked up... She was taking just all kind of risk and was probably more than most likely would have let the doctor go after he did the surgery and she got her powers. I don't think she had any intention on turning this dude into the police whatsoever.
No.
So her character changed on like a multitude of different levels, and I just didn't buy it. I didn't feel that we earned where we got her to by the end of the season. And then she ends up killing Jessica's mom and shit, which I felt she was in the right. Like, yes, you know, the fact that Jessica was like, well, because what does she say to her? Like, when she goes to her apartment, and she's like, you know that there was no other way. I was doing it to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And Trish is right, because remember when Trish comes out of her coma after the surgery to try to get her superpowers, she's talking to the detective, and he's like, you know, she says to him, you know, make sure Jessica doesn't get hurt or something like that. And he's like, I'll do my best. And she was like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
And like the face he makes, he's like, look, like, she's a cop. Her mom's a cop killer, and she's aiding and abetting a fugitive. Like, they gonna shoot them motherfuckers on sight. Like, he basically straight up told her, like, you know, or with that look was just pretty much like, if she don't turn herself in or some shit, like, they gonna kill her.
Yeah.
And so she did Jessica a favor, because even after the police get there and they think that Jessica killed the mom, even the cops, because the detective, if he wasn't there, they probably would have killed Jessica too, because the detective was like, okay, lower your weapons. He was like, no way, sir. And he's like, look what she did. She's on our side, this, that, and the other. You know, it's cool.
And Jessica took the blame for what Trish did.
Right, which, I mean, shit, she ain't doing no jail time for anything.
No.
The whole city probably thought she was a fucking hero. It's like, yes, you killed the mass murdering supervillain. Good job. That's what the fuck you were supposed to do. Thank you. We glad you killed Kilgrave too, motherfucker. Like, shit. Which, he popped up for a minute, and I was glad to see him back. Even though he was for like maybe 10 minutes of like one episode of a 13-episode series. I wish that, and I get it, they don't want to keep going back into that well. They're like, hey, we told that story. He's gone. We don't want to keep going back to that. But at the same time, I would have appreciated them, you know, just kind of sprinkling him throughout it more. Just, they could have used him in the same way that they did, with him kind of being like the devil on her shoulder, like trying to get her to do bad shit.
Her advocate.
Right, exactly. That would have been fine. But they should have just had that spread out through, like, what is it, 13-episode season? They could have did maybe like 6 or 7 episodes of him just popping up here and there. Especially, that would have made me buy her siding with her mother so hardcore and being willing to do all this fucked up shit to help her mom. I would have believed that more because of Kilgrave. Pause. Then at least when she does do all these bad decisions and out of character things that are completely against what she normally would do, then I could have been like, yes, okay, I get it. Because she still has the elements of Kilgrave in her psyche. He's
trying to amp her up. And
yeah, or not necessarily persuade her, but coerce her into doing evil shit. And then little by little, they could have chipped away at her morality and made her more darker. Then I would have been like, oh, I like what y'all did here.
Yeah, wore down.
Yeah, because even with the boyfriend, the super, like, every time he would paint with purple and shit. Remember when they had the sex scene? She was all covered. So I thought, like, he would bring that out of her, or he was somehow related to Kilgrave in some kind of way. But no, they didn't do anything with it. So honestly, I just felt like they shouldn't have even put him in the show. Like, if that was all you were going to do with him, why even bring him back?
Unless he comes back next season.
Yeah, well, at this point, I feel like they kind of ruined the cameo that they did. But honestly, I guess in closing, by the end of this season, I really don't see how they can resolve Jessica's relationships with anybody. Because after everything that's happened, they kind of came to a head with Malcolm. He's pretty much, you know, she told him to fuck off. Now he's off working for somebody else. Hogarth told her to fuck off. She told Trish to fuck off. You know, Trish's mom always has hated Jessica.
Oh,
so
yeah.
there ain't no, you know, there was no bad blood lost between them. And that's the status quo, how it ends. Everybody's moved on. Jessica has to pick herself back up again, and everybody fucking hates her. As they should. Because honestly, with what she pulls throughout the course of this season, it's almost unredeemable. That's why I'm really curious is how are you going to make me like her again? Because it's already hard enough. She's a big pill to swallow as it is on her own. So what are you going to do that's going to make me go, I'm excited to see Jessica Jones come back. I want to see the further adventures of Jessica Jones and friends. Anyway, so we're going to rate this shit. So, Amber, tell the people, what would you rate Jessica Jones Season 2?
Meh. It was
meh?
alright.
Yeah. And just, and then a little, like, 2-sentence why.
Like, I liked it, but like I said earlier, it was really slow. It was hard to get into. So I just had a really hard time watching it and keeping my attention.
Okay. That's fair. Me, I hated it. I didn't really fucking hate it, but I did hate it. I felt that the show jumped the shark multiple times throughout. I felt that there was no clear direction on what they wanted to do with this season per se. Like, they had a story that they maybe wanted to tell, but I don't think it was told properly. And honestly, with the relationships and characteristics, or just the way the characters have interacted and how everything played out, I don't necessarily want to see another season of this. So,
I don't know.
I mean, we'll see where it goes from here, but as it stands, yeah, Jessica Jones has hit the shit list for sure. It's that time again for America's #1 show, Dumb Shit of the Week. That's right, Dumb Shit of the Week is the show where you, yes, you, submit your findings of dumb shit, and we talk about it. Want your submission on the show? Find us on Twitter @GiantLeap, 4 Geeks, or you can email us at officialOGLFG@gmail.com. Now here's your host for the evening, Amber.
Hey guys, this week for Dumb Shit of the Week, we decided to try a theme. This week's theme is the dumbest action scene you've seen in a movie. Our first submission is from Two Girls on a Bench at 2 Girls on a Bench on Twitter. It's from the movie Deep Blue Sea when Samuel Jackson gets eaten by a shark.
Yeah, it was funny too because that particular scene has always been one of those. Okay, I'm gonna make a pun. that was always one of those like famous scenes in my mind as them jumping the shark. Ugh. It's because it's just a moment in a movie that was just okay. Deep Blue Sea is a dumb movie to begin with.
I've never seen it.
Don't go back and watch it. Look, do yourself a favor and if you have not seen Deep Blue Sea, unless you just like watching bad movies ironically just to be funny, then sure. But no, don't go back and watch Deep Blue Sea. No, it was a lot of dumb stuff that had happened up until that point in the movie, but that particular scene is fucking ridiculous because Samuel Jackson's like giving this whole monologue about how there was this avalanche and there were 7 people that survived the avalanche, but only 2 actually made it home because they killed the other, or only 5 made it home because they killed 2 of them. And it's this whole thing. And he's like, we're going to stop fighting and we're going to get off this motherfucking boat and some shit to the effect of that. And then the shark comes out and just eats him and shit. And it's fucking hilarious. But no, that one is a oldie but goodie. Like that's the gift that keeps on giving. So thank you, Trisha and Shauna at Two Girls on the Bench. Like I have a how do I want to say a guilty pleasure, I guess. Yeah, that could be considered a guilty pleasure movie. Like I know it's bad, but
you'll still watch it.
Yeah. I watch it because it's bad. I mean, like I said, I won't watch it. Like, if it's on, sure. Like, if I just so happen to walk into your house and you're watching Deep Blue Sea for some god-awful reason, sure, I'll sit down and watch it. But, no, am I going to, go to the local family video and be like, hey, do you guys have Deep Blue Sea in stock? It's like, actually, we do. we actually have, like, 200 copies of this shit that we can't get rid of.
Our next submission is from Elizabeth Hancock at Eliz M. Hancock on Twitter. Shoot 'em Up is full of ridiculous action scenes, but the one that stands out is when Clive Owen taking a carrot and shoving it through the back of a guy's throat while saying, "Eat your vegetables." That is probably the strangest thing I've ever heard of.
Well, it's funny because you haven't seen Shoot 'em Up.
No, I have not.
So, in preparation for this, I had her look up that particular scene on YouTube so she had, like, context and, like, could actually visually see that scene. And yeah, that whole thing is fucking like ridiculous. I mean, Shoot 'em Up as a movie. Excuse me. Shoot 'em Up as a movie is supposed to be this overly testosterone-driven, like obnoxiously ridiculous action movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the point of Shoot 'em Up, and that's just one of those things where, like, especially in the 90s, especially like during like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone's heyday, where they would have them just say corny ass puns when they would kill people. So since, you know, I think there's some movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he like throws a dude off a plane, and they're like, "What happened to such and such?" And he's like, "He missed the flight," or something like some of such shit. So it's like in that where he shoves the carrot through the dude's mouth, and he's like, you know, "Eat your vegetables." Like, it's a callback to all that kind of shit. Like, there's a sex scene in that movie where they have a sex / gunfight scene. So like he's having sex with like Clive Owen is having sex with Monica Bellucci's character. I'm pretty sure, and these guys come in and they're still fucking as he's like shooting and killing motherfuckers, like trying to run into the apartment. Oh yeah. Oh, she's like still into it and coming and oh god yes, and he's da 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 just killing all these motherfuckers. It is absurd, but it's hilarious though. I'm like, so I guess this can be the inverse of the last one. For the last dumb shit of the week one, do not go back and watch what was it again? Deep Blue Sea, but you can go back and watch Shoot 'em Up. That one is actually pretty good. It's ridiculous from beginning to end, but it's actually pretty good. It's pretty funny, and it's on purpose. And it's not just some like, you know, biggity bullshit that somebody threw together like, oh, you know, and it's unintentionally funny because it's so bad. No, this one goes out of its way to be bad.
Bad on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Our next submission is from Sloth Bear at slothbear35 on Twitter. And it looks like it's from Lord of the Rings when everything is falling, there's rocks falling, and the character is still just jumping on these rocks trying to get to the bad guy.
Yeah, like, I was confused at that one, too. Like, it does look like, because, shit, it almost looks like Legolas or some shit.
It does.
Like, jumping, you know,
but it's
from
in
these
black
stones.
and white, so it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell, like, what movie that's from. But regardless, like, yeah, gravity don't work like that.
No, not at all. Like, they're all falling, and he's just trying to run up them.
That's like that Wile E. Coyote shit, where, like, he'd run off a cliff trying to chase the Roadrunner.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't realize that he didn't have any ground under him, and he didn't fall until he did realize that he was actually not on the ground anymore. See, that's that, like, quantum physics shit where it's like nothing exists until you look at it type shit. But yeah, no, that just bothers me in action movies in general, just when they do something where they defy the laws of physics to the point where it's just like, okay, like, what is this? Like, if the premise is that you're in some kind of Matrix type shit or you got powers or something to the effect of that, then sure, you can do that kind of shit and it won't bother me. But it's like, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies are really bad about that. They're really bad about that, actually, thinking about it. Like, I think it's Pirates of the Caribbean 2 where he's on the big, like, water thing.
Wheel.
Yeah, the wheel, and he's, like, running on that, and I'm like, no, it don't work like that. He'd be dead like a million times over. Like, no, it don't work like that. Or where they pull the safe through the wall.
Yeah.
And the one with the was it some horses and shit?
I believe it was horses.
Yeah.
And they just pulled it right through the brick walls. And that was just ridiculous as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and we're going to get to some safe pulling shit a little bit later in this, too.
Our next submission is from Hop Nation USA at Hop Nation USA on Twitter. They said the majority of the fight scenes in the Resident Evil movies rifle with gravity, physics, and logic, but the one that they nominated was the character Alice was fighting with one of these weird dogs, and a piece of glass falls from the ceiling, and she kicks it, and it goes right into the dog.
Yeah, that shit was fucking hilarious. Like, that's that, like, walking between the raindrops type shit.
Yeah.
Like where
it
it's
just
like
paused in, like, slow motion, and you just see the piece of glass just standing straight up.
right, and now, to be fair, in the logic of the movie, it is supposed to be some shit of she's been enhanced.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite some Captain America type shit, but she's gotten one of the T viruses or some variation of it injected into her, and they've made her some kind of superhuman, because that's what originally what the Resident Evil shit was about. They were trying to make, like, you know, super soldiers per se, and it ended up turning people into, like, zombies and stuff.
Okay.
So it kind of went wrong, and they were trying to just make biological, you know, weapons, living biological weapons to fight, and, you know, to just have military application.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Our next submission is from Sidekick Showdown at SKSD Podcast on Twitter. And they said their scene was from Shoot 'em Up, and the skydivers are falling, and they're just fighting while they're falling through the sky.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's another one from Shoot 'em Up. So yeah, so we already talked about him shoving the carrot through the dude's throat throughout the back of his fucking head. We talked about the sex scene where they're having a gunfight during it, and now, yeah, there's it's funny because at the beginning of that scene, the Clive Owen, that's Clive Owen's character. He kills this guy who's trying to come down from the cockpit to, like, parachute out, and his parachute is, like, stuck to the door to open it. So when he kills the dude, Paul Giamatti's character is trying to get out the plane, but he can't open the door because the guy's body is, like, being pulled up with it and blocking it from them getting out. And so Clive Owen, he jumps off the plane, and then, like, all the other henchmen and shit jump off after him, and they're having, like, a shootout in the air while they're falling. And it looks so bad. Like, the green screen is terrible. Like, you can pretty much see the outline on these motherfuckers when they're falling. Like, it's really, really bad. But, just because that's just the nerd in me, and not geek, nerd, there's a difference. Just to clarify, just putting this out here on the books right now. Nerds are book smart. Geeks are just, like, miscellaneous pop culture facts and, like, oh, you know, Fantastic Four issue number such and such came out on this date. Like, that's, yeah, like, nerds are not the same thing as geeks. There is a difference.
Yeah.
And I sound like a, you know, well, actually, you know, right now, because I'm clarifying this shit. I'm just saying, though, just saying. I'm like, I wish I was a nerd, because nerds are smart and, you know, make lots of money and probably wouldn't be doing a podcast and shit.
Probably not.
Or maybe, hey, what's his name? The astrophysicist dude, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He does a podcast, so
Yeah.
and it's actually really good. So if you don't listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson's podcast, you should listen to it. Now that I'm done plugging somebody else's podcast on here, my nerd question would be: could you actually have a gunfight in the air like that, like falling, like with the wind resistance and velocity?
That
and everything?
really doesn't make sense.
Cause it's almost like that thing of, like, shooting, like, you can't, like, shoot out in the water.
No.
So
It'll just sink. It might go for a short distance, like through or down in the water.
yeah, but there would be too much resistance. Yeah,
Yeah.
it wouldn't travel the same way.
It would go down in the flight or the
water.
No, the direction of the bullet, it probably wouldn't go in the same direction as if it was shooting in the air, shooting at someone
yes.
or something.
Yeah, no, because I'm like, I wonder if you could even really do that. So yeah, if anybody out there that is into science and physics and whatnot and can tell us that, like, hit me up and let me know. Can you kill someone, or can you have a gunfight while free falling in the air? Like, would a bullet travel
Is it
far
possible?
enough? Yeah, could you actually do any of that? I mean, okay, none of that bullshit he was doing was actually possible, but I'm just curious, like, could you just shoot a gun straight on and would it hit a target, like if you were falling and the target was falling with you simultaneously? Like, I'm curious. I want to know. But my favorite part about that whole scene is at the end where the one guy fucking falls into the helicopter and shit that's below him. I was like, oh man, like that shit was hilarious. Like, I was in tears.
Our final submission is from the IMDb Journey podcast at IMDb Journey on Twitter. Their submission was the final fight in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. They just said it was dumb, stupid, terrible, and pitiful.
Yeah, no, that... So it was funny because I was just talking about this the other day when I was on the Nerd to the Third podcast, and we were talking about the original Mortal Kombat video game movie, and that one is it has its bad moments as well, but for the most part it was received fairly well and people did like it. And when the sequel Mortal Kombat Annihilation was coming out, it was going to be more characters in it from the games, and you know, it was going to be a continuation of where we left off at the end of the first Mortal Kombat, because Shao Kahn, there we go, shows up and he's wanting to take over the world because they lost the Mortal Kombat tournament. Because the whole premise of Mortal Kombat is every like 10 years or so there's a tournament where the strongest fighters of each realm have to fight for the for who gets to rule that realm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you lose so many Mortal Kombat tournaments in a row, your realm goes over to the Emperor. And so that's what the whole thing is about. That's why they're fighting each other and this, that, and the other. Anyway, Shao Kahn loses, but he's evil and a bad guy, so he's like, fuck the rules and shit, I'm just going to come take over anyway. And that's where we get Mortal Kombat Annihilation from. Well, anyway, in the sequel, they wanted to bring more elements of the game in, so they brought in more characters from the games, and they brought in a lot of the more of the finishing moves and the different signature moves that the characters had. And at that point in the games, they had I forget what they were called, but they were like I don't think they're bestiality, but it's like a beast fatality where like they would turn into like different monsters and creatures and stuff. Mm-hmm. And Liu Kang's was he would turn into a dragon. Now, his finishing move when he turned to a dragon, he looked like a dragon, you know, or like what you think a traditional dragon would look like a long serpent-like thing with wings and you know, fire and all that kind of shit, right? And when they tried to incorporate that into the movie. Now, at this point, I think this shit came out like in the late 90s or something like that. So, you know, CG was nowhere near where it's at now. Like, it looked bad. But even in the GIF that they, the IMDb Journey guys put from the movie of him transforming into the dragon. Like, I think he's only a dragon for like a little bit of time, and then Shao Kahn, he turns into some kind of dragon thing and they fight each other, and it just looks so bad. But he doesn't even look like a dragon. He looks like a dude that is like, he looks like a poor man's Killer Croc from Suicide Squad. I swear to God. Because he stands upright, and you know, like his arms don't shrink down and nothing like that. He doesn't get like the long, like serpent-like body. He's like stocky and shit.
Like still like human.
Yeah, and just like reptilian is all. He was more like Dr. Connors from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 than anything else. I was just like, that's not a fucking dragon. Like, what is this shit? I mean, the movie was bad enough as it was, but that, and trust me, that is one of the few egregiously bad things in that movie, but that is probably the standout of everything.
Remember, Dumb Shit of the Week is your show, so send in your submissions. Every week we'll compile them, read them, and shout you out for sending it. So keep them coming. You can send it to us on Twitter at GiantLeap, the number 4 geeks, or email it to us at officialoglfg@gmail.com.
All right, so for our next thing for this week, we have our first set photos of Chris Hemsworth on the set of the new Men in Black reboot sequel. I'm not really sure. It's really kind of vague. I'm not 100% what it's gonna be.
Have they not put any details out about it?
Well, kind of, sort of, but not really. Here, I'll tell you what I did find. I'm getting this from theexpress.co.uk. They say Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones may have suited up for their last 3 movies, but now the Men in Black are getting a reboot. But wait. Hemsworth and his Thor Ragnarok co-star Tessa Thompson are gearing up for Sony's spin-off of the Alien comedy franchise. Now, they just said in the last sentence that it was a reboot, and then in the very next sentence they called it a spin-off. So I'm like,
they don't even know.
I'm like, is it a reboot, or is this a continuation of what has already happened? Are we going to acknowledge the fact that Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones were in the prior movies, or are we going to pretend like that didn't happen? Which one is it?
They don't exist.
Right. But anyway, they say that it's set in the UK. The pair will play agents at the London branch of the Men in Black. So it's just a few set photos, and basically it's just him. He's eating a fucking sandwich in a suit and shit. You know what I'm saying? It ain't
with sunglasses on.
Right. He's just wearing a fucking, black suit with a white shirt and a black tie and some sunglasses. It ain't
it could be any movie.
Right. There's nothing about it distinguishable to make you know it's Men in Black unless they just say, hey, this is from the Men in Black set. It could have been him at a fucking funeral for her. We know
it could have been.
God forbid, but
It sounds like it could be in the same worlds. They might reference Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith, especially if it's another branch.
Yeah, they said it's the London branch, right? But because in the prior movies they never make it seem as though the Men in Black are an international thing per se. It just seemed like it was just in the U.S.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is because because as soon as I saw this, I was like, okay, no, we setting some ground rules now, because if you are making a Men in Black movie, okay, this is a must have, and I'm putting this on the internet for all eternity so it can be known. If you want to make a Men in Black movie, there are 2 things that you have to do. 1, Will Smith has to be in this movie in some way, shape, or form. He got to either be a supporting character, a cameo, on the TV in the background, an old episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air playing on something,
his voice somewhere in
right,
there singing you to sleep.
Right. What the fuck? Will Smith singing you to sleep, his lullaby. Yeah, he's like, just the 2 of us. Just the 2 of us. I actually really like that song. Anyway, and then the second thing that you have to have is the lead actor of the movie has to make a hip-hop song about the movie for the soundtrack. So, Chris Hemsworth, you have to make a hip-hop song for this movie, and it can be, you can team up with Will Smith, get Dr. Dre on the beat, or who else? Who do the kids like? I don't know, DJ Khaled is some fucking money.
I don't know.
DJ Khaled, he please, because I'm sick of being on Instagram. Please, I need to make somebody doing something else. Between this and Weight Watchers, I'm sick of all this bullshit. But
find Timbaland or something.
Right. Oh god, that'd be dope. Yeah. Okay. So we already got you. Look. Dream scenario: Chris Hemsworth, hip hop song for the new Men in Black spinoff movie, produced by Timbaland and Pharrell, featuring Justin Timberlake and the ghost of Michael Jackson.
Oh goodness. Got it all set up for him.
Right, so
Sony, just pick it up.
get on that, right. Get on your agents, and Sony has like a record company. I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, so y'all can start kicking this shit out right now. But no, I mean, I like the Men in Black movies. I don't necessarily feel like anybody was sitting around going like, man, they really need to bring back the Men in Black movies. That's a franchise that they could, put some life back into. Like, I mean, it's whatever.
They were good.
Yeah, like they were good
Everyone
enough for what they
enjoys them.
were. Yeah, I mean, they were whatever. They were good comedies. Like, it was whatever. They were never too self-serious. So I mean, I'm not. Am I pissy if they do reboot it? Not really. I mean, it's like, it's whatever. If it's a continuation, it's whatever. I mean, either way,
Watch it regardless.
yeah, the movies aren't going anywhere. It's not changing anything about what we're watching. So, or like, hey, if you, it's kind of like when they do the remakes of anything else. Like when people got pissy about the Ghostbusters remake. It's like, granted, yes, no, I don't necessarily like what they're doing with it either, but it's not taking away from the original movies. The original movies are still there.
Yeah.
Or like when people adapt a book or something into a movie, and it's like, oh, well, they ruined the book, and I'm like, how did they ruin the
You
book? The
still
book is
have
still
it.
on the shelf. Like, they didn't take pages out of your book and burn them and shit when they made the movie, and it was like, you can never read this again. Like,
or like forcing you to watch the movie. Like, you don't have to watch it.
right? Like, it is what it is. So I mean, I'm kind of here nor there about them remaking the Men in Black or continuing it. They can do whatever they want to do, and I'm kind of indifferent either way. But I will say, if they are going to go ahead and proceed and make another one of these, then they have to, like I said, Will Smith better pop up in this shit, and Chris Hemsworth better learn how to rap. But you better call that motherfucker from that fucking singing in a taxi show and shit. What is that shit?
Oh, Carpool Karaoke.
Yeah.
With James Corden.
Yeah, James Corden. That's his name. I was like, you better hook up with him and have him write you some some sick fucking lyrics, because you got to get on that. But anyway, I'm like, oh, I can't wait till it happens too. It's gonna happen. You just wait. You heard it here, folks. On One Giant Leap for Geeks, it's happening. But one of the things that they have to get right, and I'm worried that they're just gonna CG the whole thing and it's gonna look like not as good, but the Men in Black franchise, I think, is best known for like the aliens. Like the creatures are always really interesting looking and cool. Like in the first one, the alien was basically like a giant cockroach, like inside Vincent D'Onofrio's body and shit, with all this weird saggy skin or whatever. And as he's starting to like rot, and I think in the second one,
They were like weird worm things. They like stood straight
yeah.
up.
They were like the little like they were always in the break room drinking coffee and cussing and smoking cigarettes and shit.
I liked
They're like,
those.
hey, the motherfuckers is hilarious.
I loved those.
Yeah,
aliens.
like those things were really cool. The villain in the second one, she had like the tentacles and shit. She was almost like Ursula from like the Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Where like her top half was human, but the bottom half was like tentacles and all this weird shit. And then in the third one, the dude, he had like no eyes or some weird shit, and his hands had like mouths in it or something crazy. It was
I don't remember the third one as well.
Yeah, it's not very good, but it's whatever. But anyway, I mean, I just want to make sure, and I'm pretty sure Rick Baker, either him or, yeah, it was probably Rick Baker, or somebody else. It's probably not him. There's another VFX artist that was really good at that kind of stuff, that I'm trying to think of his name, but I'm blanking on it. Either way, one of the two of them was doing the like the practical, like the little wormy guy, the worm guys, I think is what they were called. Yeah, it was just the worm guys and that kind of shit. But either way, I just want to see some cool ass practical aliens in it. I don't want them all to be CG.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I want them to be imaginative, like something that I wouldn't necessarily think of. Like, I don't want them to all look like the aliens that we seem to just make in all movies now, where they all pretty much look like the Cloverfield monster or some shit. It's like, I don't want that. So it's
You
like,
want them to be creative.
yeah, give me some, some cool aliens. And I mean, I hope overall that this does do well, because I like Chris Hemsworth as an actor. I think he's good, and I want him to do well, because he's gonna need work after whatever happens with him in Thor. Like,
He won't need to work no more.
well, look, I was gonna say, I mean, unless he just
He
finna
wants
retire.
to work.
Look, Disney ain't giving them motherfuckers that much money. Only Robert Downey Jr. getting them fat of paychecks to where he can retire off that shit.
Yeah.
Like, he don't need to make these movies no more. He just want to ensure that he can buy a small country at some point. So I think that's his plan going forward.
Just stockpile all the money.
Pretty goddamn much, yeah. Because, I mean, I think he made like 40 million from like Spider-Man Homecoming, and that's not even his movie.
I want to say the last one I heard, it was like 50 million.
Oh yeah, off Infinity War probably. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
if not more than that, I'm sure.
It was,
And he probably
a
gets
high
some
number.
shit off the back end of that shit too. But yeah, no, I want Chris Hemsworth to still, be relevant, and him not just get that thing that a lot of other actors get, unfortunately, where they like play a superhero character or like a really big known character, and then they can't really get work doing anything else
because they
that's
associate them.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Everybody
Yeah.
just like, oh, that's Thor, and it's like, no, because I mean, look at poor Andrew Garfield. Like, I mean, he's a great actor, and I mean, he's always going to be Spider-Man to most people. So, and he's been in other shit in Oscar, nominated. I don't think he won an Oscar for what was that movie that Mel Gibson did about the war? We didn't see it, but
I don't remember.
I can't think of the name. But anyway, yeah,
It's the same thing like the guy who plays Norman on the Bates Motel. I can't watch anything else he's in because I associate him with the Bates Motel.
Because what is he in, The Good Doctor? And
I won't
that?
watch it.
It's funny because with you like actively protesting that. She's like, I will not watch this.
It's not
That
Norman.
is not Norman.
It's not
Exactly.
Norman. Can't play no doctor.
It's like, what is this little boy with autism and all this? But no, fuck that. That is Norman. Norman Bates, goddammit, and not a goddamn thing else.
Exactly.
Fuck you. Anywho, okay. So, now, we are going to be reviewing a little movie called Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Get it? A little movie.
Yeah! See,
Gotcha.
That was good, though. That was good. I'll give you that one. I didn't even catch myself doing that. That was good. I'll give you that one this time. But, yeah, we're going to review Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, we're going to do this in two halves. So, we're going to do a spoiler-free half, and we're going to do a spoiler-filled half. So, we put this at the end of the episode, so, you can listen to the first half, and then if you don't want to listen to the rest, you don't have to worry. We will make it clearly known when we go into spoiler territory. So, if you want to go ahead and check out, you can. It's totally up to you if you want to stay. Honestly, I mean, I think with this particular movie, besides the stinger at the end that has to do with tying into Infinity War, there's not really a whole lot to spoil per se.
Do you mean the end credits?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Besides that, there's not really a whole lot to spoil for this one. So, that being said, if you cannot stay to the end, make sure to go check us out on all the social media platforms. Just look for One Giant Leap for Geeks. Specifically on Twitter, it is at Giant Leap, the number 4 Geeks. Subscribe to our podcast on whatever podcasting platform that you're listening to this on, whether it be iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, Google Play Music, anything like that. Go ahead and subscribe to us. And if you can, give us a rating and a review. We would really appreciate it. But anywho, now that we're done self-promoting. So, we're going to do a thing. Because Amber, I love her to death. But she has the hardest time remembering what we saw. So it's always funny to me to hear her say back what we watched. So Amber, tell me what was Ant-Man and the Wasp about? Just give me just like a small synopsis. You don't have to go through the whole thing. Just like in a couple sentences, just give me like a brief summary. Like if you were flipping through this shit on Netflix and you were trying to see what this movie was about, what would you give it as a description for Ant-Man and the Wasp?
That Ant-Man, he's on house arrest just after what happened in Civil War.
Okay.
And he's looking, basically he's trying to stay out of trouble, but trouble finds him.
Ooh.
And basically it's just him trying to, I don't know how to do this without spoiling it, trying to solve a problem.
Hope and Hank come to him.
Yeah, needing help.
Yeah, and he has to break his house arrest to go off and help them, and
so he's basically just risking everything to help his friends.
Exactly, and shenanigans ensue.
Exactly.
So, I'll say this up front. The comedy, as with the first Ant-Man, is kind of hit or miss a lot of times. At least it is for me.
It could have been a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, it's this is a better movie overall than the first Ant-Man, but I still don't feel like they quite hit a... They did not have a success ratio high enough to a lot of the other more comedic Marvel movies that have come out as of late, like Guardians 2 and Thor Ragnarok and stuff like that. I mean, even Infinity War, you know, it's like that wasn't a comedic movie per se, but all the jokes in those hit and were funny, and it was constantly doing something that was humorous.
Exactly.
The Ant-Man movies, they're always telling jokes, but the jokes aren't always funny, and the delivery isn't always the greatest. And it's unfortunate, too, because I think that they have a real strong cast of dramatic and comedic actors. Because, for example, Michael Pena always amazes me because, granted, yes, he can play kind of a type, you know, of goofy character, but he can play really good dramatic parts, too.
And he can be serious.
Yeah, so I'm like, he's very versatile. Like, he can play, you know, just goofy-ass Luis in the Ant-Man movies, and then you can turn around and watch him in something like a drama like End of Watch and just see the range that he has between those two characters. So, I mean, Michael Pena, he's awesome.
I enjoy him and his acting.
Yeah, but, you know, Paul Rudd, he's really, really funny, and, I mean, he just has, like, buckets and buckets of charm, so... Paul Rudd, he is awesome. Like, you almost just want to, like, put him in a room full of, like, your stuffed animals and shit and, like, sleep with him at night. Like, cuddle him. Like, Mommy, I lost my Paul Rudd. It's like, oh, I'm sure you probably left him in the car again, sweetie. We'll go grab your Paul Rudd for you. Like,
that doesn't sound creepy at all.
No, it's not, right? I know. He'd appreciate it, I'm sure. But no, Paul Rudd, he's very charming, and, you know, he is funny, but I don't know, I think maybe it could just be the director, that maybe he just isn't the best at bringing that out of, yeah, you know, because I feel like they do ad-lib a lot of stuff in it too, but I don't know, but I mean, comedy is of everything just about is subjective as far as entertainment goes, but comedy especially is very subjective. So, you know, some people may have thought the whole movie was hilarious beginning to end, but I, at least, and you.
Yeah, I agree with
really
you.
Didn't. But, like I was saying before, though, Michael Pena, he is the standout of this movie. Again, like he was in the first one. Like, I didn't really care for the comedic stuff in the first Ant-Man, but all of the stuff that I did think was really funny had Michael Pena in it. So he, again, is the best part of the movie. Luis, he's just a hilarious character in general, and they use him just the right amount. Just some of the things that he says is just so random. Like, there's a scene where he just randomly just pulls up to them, and he's like, "What's up?" Yeah. He's like, he does like the old Budweiser commercial.
I loved
and
that
they just kind of look at him, and he's like, You don't remember that from the Beloved commercial? it's like beloved. Like,
It's like so random and so out of nowhere, but it was just hilarious.
Like, it is really funny, but he...
That's how we should have started this out. What's up?
Right, I know. Just put that in the title for the episode. Like, the fuck is this one about? But yeah, no, Luis is really funny. Scott is funny as well. I didn't like that Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly had to both play the straight man. Like, I think that Michael Douglas did a good enough job on his own playing the straight man, and they could have let Evangeline Lilly be more fun. Cause
who is that? The Wasp?
Yeah.
Okay, Hope.
Yeah, because she felt more like a Debbie Downer the whole time, you know? Cause
A
she
lot
was
of the
so
time,
serious,
yeah.
like to the point where it was like,
She's had one mission.
yeah, you know, and she was just kind of one note, and I wanted to see her evolve some from the first Ant-Man, because that was what she was in the first Ant-Man, and her kind of character arc in that was about her learning to be more, just more of a normal person, and not so uptight about everything and so super serious, and just enjoy life, and yeah, you know, just loosen up a little bit.
Take that stick out.
Right. Take the stick out your ass, because it's, you know, it's not a good look to be like that all the time. It just ain't. I don't know. Like, what did you think about as far as like the acting? Like how did you? Well, go ahead.
I thought it was good, but like I said, it could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
They could have done a lot of things differently to. Not that it didn't keep my attention, because it did. It kept my attention, and I didn't feel bored through it at all. But I feel like they could have just changed the style a little more and tweaked it so it was more. Just give us more.
Right. I just want more. Like, what did you not like about the movie? It needed more. Just put that in the box.
I can't really describe it, but it just needed something more.
I get it. I get what you mean. The movie's scope felt kind of small, and I get it, because after coming off of Infinity War and Black Panther, it's like they needed kind of a palate cleanser and something smaller in scope to start off with. And this is fine, but, you know, by the end, it actually does open up into a bigger thing of possibilities that we'll get to later. But I get what you mean. I think that as far as the acting goes, is that I keep just going back to the director. Like, I just don't think that Peyton Reed, I think, is the director for this. I just don't think that he does a very good job getting good performances out of his actors, and
he's not bringing them out to their full potential.
Yeah, and because I know that Evangeline Lilly is a good actress, and I know that, you know, Paul Rudd is a good actor, and Michael Pena, and, you know, to some degree or another, T.I., and, you know, Michael Douglas and everything else, and Michelle Pfeiffer.
T.I. can be funny, so I'm like,
sure. Mm-hmm.
They could have did a lot more with it.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm just kind of like, well, you know, maybe it is just a director issue and not necessarily a script issue. I mean, it could be a little bit of both. Who knows? But I hesitate to say, like, oh, the actors were bad. Just the acting was bad. Because I know that the actors can give good performances. Just in this particular movie, I don't feel were given the right direction to get them there.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I feel like you can't really go into more depth without completely spoiling or giving it away.
Sure, yeah, right. I know, and when we get to the spoilers, I can talk a little bit more freely, and it'll make a little bit more sense of what I'm trying to get at. Oddly enough, this film felt more like a TV movie than the first Ant-Man did, because this one had a little bit bigger of a budget. The scope was still small, but it was a little bit bigger than the first Ant-Man. But this one felt not cheap per se, but do you get what I mean? Like we had talked about this off mic, and I said honestly, if this would have been a Netflix original thing, I would have been like, yeah, no, I believe it. Especially after seeing, like, Lost in Space and, like, how good the CG looked in that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, this could have totally been something on Netflix. Like, I didn't necessarily think that the production looked all that good. Like, it looked kind of cheap.
I get what you're saying.
Like, there's a scene where there's a character getting ready to travel somewhere, and they're putting on a costume.
Yeah.
And that costume looks so cheap and chintzy and like some shit that'd be at like a Party Planet, you know, some bullshit Halloween USA. Like, it was, yeah. And just, I don't know, like, some of there was just some moments that just felt like, yeah, this is on a set, and it, you know,
maybe they just blew their budget in different areas, so they
spent all their money on the CG, I guess.
They had to skim back on other parts of the movie.
Maybe, yeah, because I didn't see it in IMAX. I saw it in EMAX, and had surround sound and lounging seats and stuff like that, and it wasn't in 3D or anything like that, which I couldn't think of anything that was in this movie that would have warranted me paying extra to go see it in 3D. But it looked good. It's just that, I don't know, like, it just felt like a TV show or a TV movie more so than a theater movie.
Like, you could have been fine with just watching it at home on a nice TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Been perfectly fine with that instead of seeing it at the movie theater.
Exactly. I think that the action scenes in this one are the saving grace to the movie, to be honest. Like I said, it's not a bad movie, but it's kind of mediocre, and I think that the action scenes help with elevating it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And they were just really super inventive, but the fucking trailer to this pretty much gives away a lot of, if not all of, the cool action sequences in the movie. Like the Pez dispenser, the salt shaker, him growing big in the water.
It was just like that, like the first movie too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Thomas the Train and
I don't know what it is with the Ant-Man movies.
They can't stop with the trailers.
Yeah, but I mean, the Ant-Man didn't get that many trailers. I only think he maybe got 2 or 3.
They just need to stop altogether.
Just don't make trailers for movies at all.
Just wait till you see it.
Yeah.
You can have posters. Just wait till you see the movie to get anything.
Yeah, nah, that shit ain't finna happen. You ain't finna get. Look, there's too many people, and they trying to get to come see some shit for them to be like, look, it's out right now. Go see it. What is it called? I don't know. Just tell them you want to see that movie that came out like 30 seconds ago. No poster, no trailer. Just do it. Disney made it, bitch. That's all you need to know. Come see it.
Disney and Marvel.
Right, there you go. And come get this Marvel dick. Like, all right. Well, you ain't done me wrong so far. I guess I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I was disappointed that the trailers did give away a lot of the action scenes because there's not much more that's in the film that you didn't see in the trailers, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you didn't see any of the trailers besides the first one, I won't go into detail of everything that they spoiled, but yeah, it's pretty bad. Like, in the spoilers, I'll touch back on this part again, but they showed you way too much for sure. But they were fun, and when they played out, they were shot really well, and the energy levels were high, and just the way that they used their powers. Because when you just think about it, like, oh, they can get big and small, whoop-de-fucking-do. But no, just how they use it and how they use the insects for help in the movie was, I thought, really creative. And I thought it was really fun. The villain, or one of the villains, Walter Goggins is in this movie, and he plays a villain, and he was really unnecessary.
I feel the same way because
they could have cut that whole subplot.
him.
Yeah, Like, there was no reason to have all that, you know, and the double crosses and all this other stuff. It was just like...
It was unnecessary.
I almost feel like he was strictly there to just give other characters
something to do.
Yeah. I don't necessarily feel like they felt, the heroes don't have enough going up against them right now. I think they were more like, well, we got these guys over here and they need something to do. We ain't paying them for nothing. Like, y'all got to get them something to do in the story.
Sprinkle them in a little bit.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, no, I just felt like he just added too much to it and just kind of bogged and confused the story and just was like, just don't cut back to him no more. Like, he's not important.
They could have just cut that right out.
Yeah, pretty much. Or just incorporated what his character's purpose was there to serve into the main villain and just had it be a connection that way as opposed to bringing in this whole other side villain like, hey, I'm here too, guys. What? There are a couple comedic cameos in this movie. I won't spoil them, but just know that there are a few cameos from some comedic actors and improvisational actors that I was surprised at. I was like, oh shit, they got such and such in here. I was like, oh, that's cool. But yeah, no, when you see it, you'll catch them hopefully. Like I said, the action scenes were really cool, and the CG is very sleek and polished. And, I mean, there's a couple rough spots here and there, but I thought that it looked really good, especially the young special effects that they did for Michelle Pfeiffer. Like, and I guess, like, a super minor spoiler. I mean, literally, you see her character in a flashback within the first 5 seconds of the movie.
Yeah.
So I don't really feel like it's a spoiler per se. And she's on the posters and shit, so it's like she's in the movie, and they're probably going to have a flashback about her at some point. Look, Disney, now that they've perfected this making you look young shit, they are never going to waste the opportunity to make an old motherfucker look young. They don't give a fuck. Like... Robert Downey Jr. is going to be 150 years old, still be playing Iron Man, because now that they have figured out how to make him look young again, they're going to be like,
live forever.
They're going to be like, we don't even need you no more. Like, yeah, no, Tony Roberts been dead for like 13 years. No, we got the CG Iron Man up there now. Hell yeah, y'all won't be able to tell the difference between that shit at all. You just wait till they cross that uncanny valley bullshit.
There'll be a time where we don't even have actors anymore.
They'll just be like voiceover and shit.
Yeah, and they've CG'd everything, and they can just stay at home and work from home.
Hell yeah, look, Chris Evans is going to be like 360 pounds
Oh
and
my
shit,
God.
still playing Captain America somehow. Like, yeah, shit, I just come in, just read some lines. Shit, I just
Who needs to go on a diet?
Right, come pull a Vin Diesel and I am Groot, and you're like, I am Steve Rogers, and leave. I get to go home.
Language.
There you go. Hope's character, though, Hope Van Dyne, I just think I guess towards the end, she did get a little bit more lightened up and like when she says that speech to him about, like, oh, if you would have brought me with you when you went to go help Captain America, you would have never got caught in this and the other. And I was like, okay. I was like, see, I like this. And she was like, yeah, we was doing this, that, and the other together. We was a team, and then you just left. And I was like, yeah, so I guess you could explain it away as, like, oh, she's still kind of bitter at Scott because she opened up to him. And, yeah, but at the same time, I'm like, she was like that the whole movie. And I was like, man, you got to get past this shit because it's like, I don't need you over here being just a Debbie Downer of the movie all the time. But anyway, overall, what would you give Ant-Man and the Wasp? What would you rate this one?
I liked it. I feel like not necessarily we wasted our money going to see it in theaters, but I liked it enough to have seen it, but I wouldn't have been mad if we waited and saw it when we got home and just watched it on DVD.
Yeah, that's fair. I liked it as well. My rating is just above a meh, because honestly, it's kind of still, like, the first Ant-Man is definitely meh.
Yeah.
For sure. This one is just a bit better than that one, so I will say that I liked it. Not very strongly, but I did like it. There was more to it that I enjoyed to the ratio of what I didn't enjoy, so I can excuse that and let that go. So yeah, I would definitely say if you are, look, if you're a diehard and you're keeping up with all the Marvel movies, you're going to go see this no matter what anyway.
Exactly.
But if you're kind of on the fence about it, I would say if you just want a good, fun popcorn movie and just want to, see some funny visual gags and see some cool fight scenes and stuff and just have a good time, go see it. Like, definitely, go see it. Like, it's good. For sure. But keep your expectations tempered. I will say that. Because this is a mid-tier movie. This is not, Guardians or Thor Ragnarok levels of good.
Kind of just in the middle, mediocre.
Right, but this isn't like, Thor 2 Incredible Hulk, bad either. Like, it's somewhere in the middle of that. Yeah. So, okay. This is your opportunity. We are going into spoilers. So if you do not want to hear anything that's about to be said,
leave now.
Yes, this is your opportunity to stop your phone, get up, go do whatever you need to go do, and come back and listen to this after you've seen the movie. Or if you don't care about spoilers, continue to listen, but you've been warned. Like, I swear to God, I don't want to see no messages from nobody on no kind of platform. Like, oh man, you didn't say such and such and you spoiled it.
Bitches.
Right, you sons of bitches. Like, hey, and I've been sitting here vamping for a minute to give you time to stop this. So if you didn't do it, that's on you. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the big thing that everybody's probably going to want to talk about is the stinger. Okay, at the end. So the stinger, what happens is Scott has to go into the quantum realm because they've saved Janet, Hank's wife, and Hope's mother. And she has powers now from being in the quantum realm for so long. And she like communicates with Scott like through like some kind of entanglement that they were in because he went to the quantum realm once before.
They said he had an antenna in his head. She put an antenna in his head.
Basically, but not literally an antenna, but just metaphorically.
Okay.
And so then that way she could like speak through him and act through him.
Yeah.
And like put stuff in his mind and stuff and make him see stuff. And they end up saving her, and they stop Ghost, who wants to siphon the energy from Janet to heal herself because she keeps phasing in and out of things, and she can't control it, and it's hurting her, and she's dying.
Yeah, she's eventually gonna die.
And Lawrence Fishburne's character has been helping her to try and stop that. Now, by the end, they get Janet, and they're saying that they're going to help heal Ghost so she doesn't die. Scott has to go back into the quantum realm to collect some quantum healing energy, I think is what they call it. And Hope, Janet, and Hank are all there, and they send him into the quantum realm. But before he goes, they say to him, it should just be a routine thing. Just go in, get the energy. We'll bring you right back out. And they're like, basically, don't dilly-dally and fuck around while you in there, because if you get sucked into a time vortex, we won't be able to get you back out. And Scott's like, it's all good. I got this. Like, no worries. And so he goes in. He opens a little canister. It sucks the energy in. He closes it. He's like, I got it. We're all good to go. And then they're like, all right, Scott, we're going to bring you back in. And then they do this countdown, and they get the 2, and then the radio cuts out. And Scott is still in the quantum realm, and he's like, okay, guys, like, where are you? Like, get serious. Like, don't play around. And he's like, seriously, like, you said don't play around while I was in here. Like, what are you guys doing? And he's like, guys. And then they cut back to the real world, and the spots where Hank, Janet, and Hope were standing they're gone, and it's just dust falling, and it's like, fuck, like, come on, man. It was like that is like a triple gut punch now. You gut punched me once when it happened initially, and you dusted everybody with the snap, and at the end of Infinity War. Then you gut punch me again in the stinger for Infinity War when you dusted Sam Jackson. And then you didn't gut punch me a third time because you just dusted the original Ant-Man and the Wasp and their daughter. I was just like, jeez, man. I was like, I don't want to see nobody else turn to dust. Like, I'm done. Like, no more dusting.
In like 2 seconds, he's going to turn to dust.
I swear. Right, I'm just going to be talking to him and be like, Amber, I don't feel so good. It's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
It'll be all right.
Oh, man. But yeah, so that is the stinger to the end of Ant-Man, is that he goes to the quantum realm and he is stuck now because everybody else has turned to dust. So that is why he is not in Infinity War. Because he was having his little adventure off fighting Ghost, and then he was trying to save her, and now he's stuck in a quantum realm. So I think the stinger has answered our question on how the Avengers will stop Thanos. With science! Like, that's what it seems to be what's going to happen, is they're going to stop Thanos with science. Like, it's going to be some, we can time travel through the quantum realm type shit, and that's how we're going to go back and try and stop him from collecting the stones in the first place. Like, I'm sure it's going to be something to the effect of that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because, okay, so this is my theory, okay, of what's going to happen now. Since Scott is now stuck in the quantum realm, he is going to purposefully go into a time vortex. That time vortex is going to spit Scott into the future, and then Scott is going to go to the one person who he knows about enough science who could possibly help him, which would be Tony. Okay. And he's going to go to the future to an older Tony and try and get him to help him travel back to his time, because I'm pretty sure there was a casting call, and this actress, this young girl, she was cast as Scott's daughter in Infinity War 2, and she's going to be playing a 16-year-old version of his daughter in Infinity War 2. That's why I'm like, he's going to get spat out in the future. He's probably going to go home to his family to see, make sure they're okay, and he's going to see how much time he's missed and find out about everybody getting dusted. And then he's going to go to Tony and be like, I got to go back. We got to fix this. Like,
yeah.
we can't let this stay like this. And then that's what is going to be the catalyst for them stopping Thanos. That is my theory. Now, I have a few different things to help support that theory, but that is where I think all this is going. I had to get on it out. Okay. But I am curious as to what they will do with Goliath and Ghost in the MCU going forward, because they didn't kill her off. So they can potentially use her. She could even be a part of the new Avengers going forward, for all we know. They could use her as like an anti-hero. She could be just like Venom. Like, unleash your anti-hero.
Because didn't Janet completely heal her, so she's not going to die?
No. She just stopped it enough to where she wouldn't be in so much pain at that moment, and death wasn't going to be, like, imminent.
Okay.
But that's why Scott had to go to the quantum realm at the very end in the stinger, because they have to get the quantum energy to heal her permanently.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it was just kind of a Band-Aid more than a real
solution.
Fix. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm curious, like, because, like, Lawrence Fishburne's character, like he says in the movie, that, he was helping Hank with the whole Ant-Man technology in the first place, and he grew big and stuff like that back in the day, and he, it made it seem like, just especially because the way he was beefing with Hank's character, like, Lawrence Fishburne was talking mad shit to Michael Douglas's character,
yeah.
and they was just like going back and forth. Like, we were making jokes about this off mic. I was like, I swear, there's a moment where Michael Douglas runs up on Lawrence Fishburne like he's getting ready to fight him, and Lawrence Fishburne stands up out of his chair like, I will beat the shit out of you.
I can just squash you like a bug. Ha ha ha.
You get the fuck out. Did podcast cancel? We're done. We're done. No more puns. Nope, we're done. No, hell no. I will not condone that bullshit.
Puns with Amber.
See, that's what we'll do. We'll just make a little side segment of the show just for you to have puns with Amber. No.
Punny time.
My
stop.
life.
Can't stop, won't stop.
But yeah, I was hoping, especially how antagonistic their two characters were towards each other. I was hoping that, especially once you find out that Lawrence Fishburne's a villain and that he's helping Ghost, I'm like, is he gonna get big and then Scott and him are gonna have like a giant fight? That would have been dope. That's the whole time I was hoping, like, oh, because he was like, oh, I worked on him on the Goliath project, and that's what his character's name was in the comics, was Goliath. And I'm like, he grew big and shit. So I was like, can we get Ant-Man on Goliath fight? Like, that would have been dope. But no, we don't
Having
get
them
that.
both emerge from the water.
Oh, that would have been so fucking cool, man. But yeah, that, maybe in the future. Because like I said, they didn't kill their characters off, so who knows?
Maybe
down the road we'll get something with them. We'll see. I did have a question, though. Does Janet's powers and them using the quantum realm, is this how we're going to open up avenues into making, like, the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and shit like that a part of the MCU? Because Fox accepted the deal, the bid by Disney. The bid from Bibsney. No, Fox accepted the bid from Disney, so Disney is buying Fox movies, and they will absorb the assets of the Fantastic Four and the X-Men franchises and everything else. So do you think that this is how they can begin to work them in?
it's a possibility. I don't know. It could happen.
Because I mean, that's the thing that I've been the most curious about, is how are they going to bring in the X-Men and Fantastic Four when the MCU has been going on so long and it's so established at this point?
I almost feel like they should just leave it separate.
I kind of want them to not bring the X-Men in. They can bring the Fantastic Four in. That's fine. Because the Fantastic Four deals with the Avengers and stuff so much that that's fine. The X-Men are kind of... okay, because when it comes to the comics, it never makes sense to me that people love Spider-Man and Captain America and all that kind of shit because they're superheroes. Mm-hmm. But they hate the X-Men, Wolverine, Cyclops, Professor Xavier, all them because they're mutants. And that never made sense to me because I'm like, the average person does not know that Spider-Man was bitten by a radioactive spider and that's how he got his powers.
Because he's a mutant too.
Right. I'm like, they don't know. I'm sure most people just assume that these superheroes were born this way and that's why they have the powers that they have. Not that someone experimented on them, like or Captain it was an accident. You know, like it was some Daredevil shit and some chemicals got in his eyes and some crazy shit. Like, no, like, for all you know, they are mutants. So why would you treat them differently than the X-Men? There's nothing to openly differentiate them from one another. You just know that they both have powers.
I think it's just the way they portrayed them in the movies, especially from when they first started. Because when they first started doing the X-Men movies, they weren't making these Marvel movies back then. True.
But I just mean, like, in the comics in general, though, that's how it is. Like, the X-Men are treated like they're something bad, but the other superheroes are just accepted as what they are. And it's like, well, if these two characters exist in the same universe, how are these people supposed to know the difference? Why aren't you treating them all like they're mutants or treat them all like they're just regular superheroes? Like, that never made sense to me. So I say all that to make the point of how are you going to bring them into the MCU if they're supposed to be like hated and all this other shit. So it's like, I don't know, maybe with this whole opening up the quantum realm, the time vortexes and alternate dimensions and this kind of shit, maybe it can be like the X-Men are established on their own universe and there is no Captain America and Spider-Man, and it's just the X-Men there. And then they can cross those things over at some point, maybe, or just keep them separate, but acknowledge that, yes,
they do exist.
Thor and all that shit, yes, they do exist, but they're over there in this dimension, and over here we got, Wolverine and Cyclops and shit. So
I would rather them do that.
Yeah, and I mean, some purists are just gonna argue like, no, the X-Men have to be pushing their glasses up. They are going to argue that they have to be in it, but I think that you can make it work separately and just have either occasional crossovers or none at all, and just let them just stay separate and just do their thing. That's fine too. I don't see why that would be a problem. There was a couple more things that kind of like just like threw me off when I was watching the movie. There's a scene where it's towards the beginning where Hope is trying to buy a part from Walton Goggins' character, and he double crosses her, and she suits up as the Wasp and starts whooping ass and all this shit, and Ghost shows up to try and steal the technology for herself. And Ghost at some point gets into the van that Hank is in, and I swear to God that she fucking killed him, because there's a scene where they show him inside the van and Ghost has her hand, and no bullshit, now she is obviously phasing when she does this, but she has her hand through his throat.
Yeah. Through
his throat, from one side through the other, and all it's doing is keeping him from being able to speak, I guess. But I'm just like, how is he not dead? I'm like, how did you... I mean, granted, yes, maybe she didn't go to a solid state, and so she was still in a state that she could phase through his neck without harming him, per se. But when I first saw the scene, I was like, oh shit. I was like, they just killed fucking Michael Douglas at the very beginning of the damn movie. I thought he was going to be dead for the rest of it. And then, when he like responds or nods his head because she says like, don't speak or something like that. And he's like, okay, I won't. And I'm just like, oh shit, okay, he's not dead. I was like, fuck, I thought she fucking killed him.
I think she did it more to scare the crap out of him than anything.
You know what? You know what it probably was? She probably phased so she could go through his neck, and it was probably like, don't speak, or if you do, I'll go solid, and then it will kill you.
Yeah, maybe.
So, yeah, that I guess that would make a little bit more sense. Like I said, Michael Pena is the standout of the movie by far. But I feel like the two funniest parts of the movie were the scene where the whole truth serum bit with Luis and them, like, it's not truth serum. He's like, oh, and it makes you very subjective and this and the other. He's like,
maybe
it's
it
truth
is.
Serum. Yeah. Like that whole thing, and the callback to the truth serum joke was really good too. Like all that was really funny. And after they give him the truth serum, and when he's like, where is Scott? And he starts to give them this whole long ass drawn out story of like where Scott is, like emotionally and mentally and spiritually,
like,
and all
where
this
is
shit.
he at in his life?
Right. And it's like, no, motherfucker, where is he literally?
They said, tell the truth.
Yeah, no, that whole scene's really funny. And then all the stuff with Scott in the school was really funny too. Like,
yeah.
I think you said that was like your favorite part, right?
It was, because he was testing out this new suit. Hank said he hadn't fully gotten all the bugs out of it yet. There I go again.
Which real quick sidebar, that was Scott's own fucking fault, because if he hadn't lied to them and told him that he destroyed the old suit, he wouldn't have had to have used that fucking suit. So he did that to him damn self. Yeah, exactly. And he wouldn't have even been at that fucking school, because the whole reason they went there was to get the damn old suit. So
exactly. Yeah. He could have saved them a lot of trouble.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But the suit kept malfunctioning, so he kept going really big and really small, and then finally he went like in between.
It was like a toddler size.
Yeah, so when
like a big toddler though.
Once he was trying to leave the school, he couldn't just shrink back down. He stole a hoodie from the Lost and Found and was just running out of the school in this huge ass blue hoodie.
Oh, it is so funny because like when he's before he turns really big in the janitor's closet, like to get in there, he has to like run up the door and to like grab the handle to open the door. And then when he's like leaving out, like one of the teachers, and he has like the big blue hoodie on, and one of the teachers is like, "Hey," he's like, "Where's your hall pass?" And he's just kind of standing there for a minute, and he kind of just waits, and he just takes off running. Yep. He's like, "What? Hey, wait!" And he's just like, "Whatever."
He's like, "I don't know what to do."
And then they show him like running down the steps, and it's so fucking funny.
Because he could barely reach the rail.
It was so hilarious. And when he got in the car, and he had to like crawl up the seat, it was, oh man, all
Hank
that.
Was like, "How was school today?"
Right. And he was like, haha, very funny. He was like, "Do you want a juice box and some string cheese?" And Scott's like, do you really have that?
If you got a snack, I'll take it.
Oh, like I said, that's why I still stand behind my rating. I did like it. It was just over a meh, but enough to where I can say, yeah, I liked it. I like it. I think the quantum mechanics seem to be the catalyst for a lot of what's going to be coming up in the near future.
Yeah.
Like, I think the way they're going to explain how certain characters that they introduce, how their powers work, and just how, like I said, how they're going to beat Thanos with science! Like, all that kind of shit. Like, I think that all that's going to tie into quantum. That's why the scope of this movie is small and it's kind of inconsequential, but at the same time, they introduce something with the quantum shit in this movie that kind of opens up the doors for them to do a whole bunch of other things, and you can just say like, "Oh yeah, you know, quantum entanglement and vortexes."
They're just planting the seeds now.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this evolves going forward. But I will say, of all the Marvel movies that have come out this year, I mean, it was probably a no-brainer. This is going to be the weakest between, you know, Black Panther, Infinity War.
Oh yeah,
this was probably going to be the weakest one, but I do think it was somewhat of a disappointment, a little bit.
It was still worth watching.
Oh, yeah, you know, for sure, yeah. And this is definitely, like, a theater movie. Like, you know, go see it. Go see the big and small, shrinking shit and all that. Like, it's fun. Do you need to see it in 3D? I don't think so, but if you can get to the theater, I would definitely say go see it. If for no other reason, because you want to see the stinger. But honestly, if you've listened this long and you haven't seen the movie, who knows if you'll actually end up going to see it still. But hey, if you do, I think you'll have a good time no matter what.
Oh yeah.
Hey, all in all, it was definitely a good movie, and it was fun.
I agree.
You know, nothing too super serious. And honestly, after all the shit that happened at the end of Infinity War and with Black Panther 2, like, we've had a lot of heavy, hardcore, dark shit lately in Marvel, and it's like, yeah, man, like, we needed something light. Like, it's been too bad for too long.
If anything, it's a good, fun movie to go see.
Yeah.
Take the kids or go for a date night or something like that.
Right. And I say, you know, we needed something light and fun, even though at the end they bring Infinity War right back anyway. And this is like, no! Like, it was funny, because when that shit happened, people in the theater were, like, audibly like, oh! And I was like, yeah, that was
gotcha.
Up. I was like, I got you again, bitch. He's like, ha! Got him! But yeah, so that is it for the show, guys. Now, hey, look, go over and check us out on Podbean. Podbean is one of the best podcasting apps on the market. Podbean has been a leader in the field of podcasting for well over 10 years, developing innovative tools for podcasters and podcast listeners. and then you can always download that on the App Store or get it on Google Play. But remember, as always, you can find us at our home, onegiantleapforgeeks.libsyn.com, or on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, or anywhere else you get your podcast. Make sure to show us some love, so go ahead and like, subscribe, rate, follow, review, and all that shit.
Got any questions you want us to answer on the show? Any comments, criticisms, or you just want to say hi? You can email us at officialoglfg@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Giant Leap, 4 Geeks, and on Facebook, Reddit, Pinterest, Tumblr, and Instagram. Just search for One Giant Leap for Geeks. Bye!